one of the age group and like that is specifically being affected are middle-aged men and in Western countries that get into this online romantic relationship with good-looking ladies from Southeast Asia, when they really interact for some time, and eventually once there is kind of a trust established, that person that they talk to introduces an investment scheme. It's like, look, I recently invested in this, on this platform, and I made 10% within a day. Or, my uncle has this investment platform. Would you like to try it? And, you can make really 100% in a month. And people get lured into that. They initially invest a very small amount, and it actually brings the promised return. So they invest, I don't know, $1,000 US, and then, within a day, they get 100. They make small yield. They're able to withdraw it. So there is nothing really suspicious. So they start to invest more and more and more. And eventually, they get scammed. So we've seen examples where people invested really their all life savings, even taking mortgages. And there's a moment when it becomes apparent that the assets were stolen. And at that stage, some of the victims still do not connect the person that they used to talk to about it with the actual scam, which is very telling. I think for us as humans, psychologically, it's very hard to admit that we've been lied to, that we trusted so much.
Hi there, I'm your host Tayfun, and in this episode of Business as Unusual, I'm joined by Marcin Zarakowski. Marcin is an attorney specialized in blockchain investigations and the founder and CEO of Recoveris, a blockchain intelligence firm developing AI-driven SaaS platform focusing on enhancing blockchain investigations. He's also a virtual asset expert for the OSCE and certified Swiss startup board member. So let's jump in and kick off Business as Unusual the way it's meant to be, with stories worth remembering. Hi, Marcin. Thanks for joining this podcast. I know you have very interesting professional career, but I'd like to go back to the beginning. Was blockchain your childhood dream?
So first, thanks for having me. And blockchain is a relatively new technology that emerged in late 2008, beginning 2009. So naturally, this wasn't something I was thinking about. I'm originally Polish, born and raised in Poland, but for the last 8 years, I've been working and living in Switzerland. And I think that to a large extent, where I come from really had a huge impact on my choices, on my life. And to put it in a context, I was born just after the end of Cold War, so where Poland started to be a country in the Soviet bloc. So there was a big shift from the central economy into free market economy, and Poland was one of the poorest countries in Europe. Polish GDP per capita was lower than that of Ukraine's, and I believe that my generation, like our parents, had a very big motivation for us as their children to find a good job, and before that to get good education, learn languages, and be able to do something that they were not able to do in the Soviet under the Soviet regime. So I was kind of going into you go through the educational system, and there's this moment when you need to pick what type of university you would like to do, what type of degree is interesting for you. And it was always like a rational choice. What is it that can allow me to do a career? What is it that I can, I will be able to earn enough to sustain my family. So I had a variety of different interests. I was good in maths. I was good in history, and I chose to go to law school. Back then, I didn't really know what does it mean to be a lawyer. I had no family traditions. Nobody in my family was a lawyer or attorney at law. So I went to law school.
Why legal? Like why?
Yeah, I think it
Is there a
was
reason? Is it like a film that you watched and
not
then, or a book that you read and then decided to?
not really. I think it was more of a I really liked history. I was very much interested in history and culture of Central Europe and Eastern Europe. I think I was good in writing. I like to write, and what choices do you have when you're like, okay, and of course you can go to the international relations or political studies, but choosing a legal career was something that was still back then an attractive way of work. And I think that was the main reason. I was thinking like, okay, well, this is something where I can earn good money afterwards.
Okay.
So I went to law school, not knowing what it really means. And the university I went to, Jagiellon University in Krakow, was a very good school, and it gave us a lot of freedom in terms of there were some core modules that we had to take, but otherwise, I think 80% of the subjects we get to choose. I don't know, for a young person, especially in my case, that didn't really had any specified, vision of what I wanted to do. It had its advantages and disadvantages. So I picked all sorts of different areas of law, also history of law, which gave me exposure to many fields of law. At the same time, I lacked somebody like a mentor who could have told me, okay, Marcin, if you choose these subjects, they might lead you this specific route. Is this really something that you want to do? This is something what I missed. Eventually, I graduated, and then once you graduate from law school, you get to, at least in Poland, you have to make a choice. So what's afterwards? In order to practice law, of course, you can be a lawyer that works as an in-house or provide, but you're not allowed to represent clients in courts. For that, you need to do bar training, which, first you need to pass an exam to get there. And then there's a 3-year commitment. The whole bar training lasts for 3 years. You need to work under the supervision of a qualified lawyer. And I think I kind of automatically went that route. Also, I didn't think much about the consequences. So I was thinking about myself a little bit, running on the autopilot, having this embedded in the cultural code of my generation that, you need to get a good education, good job, make a living. That was what was driving me initially. And then what happened is when I was finishing my bar training, I was already married to my wife, and she's working in a totally different industry, in pharma industry, and she got a job offer from a Swiss company. And obviously this required her and us to move to another country, to move to Switzerland. And it was a very kind of pivotal moment in my life, because I spent 5 years of law school plus 3 years of bar training, invested a lot to pursue a career within law firms, like to be first junior associate, senior associate, then become a partner. And then now moving away to another country in which my education didn't really mean much, because totally different laws. Back then, I didn't speak any of the official languages of Switzerland. So finding a job for within the field of law would be extremely hard. But this was late 2017, when Bitcoin, as the most popular cryptocurrency, was reaching its first all-time highs. The price was for a very short period of time hit $20,000 per coin, which from today's perspective seems insignificant, but the price was very big.
When did you buy your first Bitcoin?
I'll get that. Unfortunately, not at that time, and I also sold them earlier, but too early. So we landed in Switzerland. I had to totally reinvent my career. I wasn't able to find a job in any of the local law firms. But the specific place in Switzerland, town of Zug, where we lived, became a global hub for blockchain and crypto projects. Total coincidence. So many of the largest crypto projects were being created and established exactly in Zug. They were headquartered over there. And the years of 2017, 2018 is not only that Bitcoin was really going up with its price, but a lot of new projects were being created. And this is the so-called ICO boom. So there were new projects created, issuing tokens, raising hundreds of millions of dollars in funding. And they were all being headquartered in Zug. And they were also looking for talents. They were looking for, legal counsels. And the local Swiss lawyers, ironically, didn't have any large advantage over me because it was still a very much unregulated field of law. People didn't really know what type of regulations are applicable. So I, having a background in intellectual property law, with it itself is very international. Yeah, it touches on a lot of technical aspects because I used to work with patent lawyers, and it also requires you to have a good legal English, because when you interact with lawyers in different countries and clients in different countries, this is definitely a must. So I applied to one of the blockchain projects. So it was a long answer to your question, but it was a pure coincidence. It's just, this is the events in my life turned in that way that I ended up in Switzerland, ended up being a lawyer that needs to reinvent his career. And exactly at that moment of time, there was this new industry emerging, specifically in Switzerland, that which I found super interesting. It was still this terra incognita, which, a regulation is being created, where I had the feeling that I can, at least in a very small level, have an impact. How this technology and this phenomena can be regulated.
That's great. One thing I noticed during our discussions, by the way, Marcin and I had common interests, and we discussed like many things, including crypto and blockchain. And what I realized is Marcin knows more about blockchain than many software engineers in that field.
That's very kind of you.
So how did you acquire that knowledge? Is it like, because it's in that community and then work for companies or read many books? So how did you acquire this knowledge?
Kind of out of necessity. I joined first blockchain project as its in-house counsel in 2018. And it's good to understand what is it that what your company does, so then you can provide a proper advice. So I had a very intensive self-taught course to grasp the basics of blockchain technology, then to be able how this can affect what type of legal implications this can create. And because it was still very much like uncharted waters, I really had to explore all potential angles, and starting from intellectual property, which was my field. A lot of blockchain projects still, but back then I think there were more of them, are open source. So they are managed by non-profit foundations that are collecting funds through selling tokens, and the money they collect should be spent in accordance with the purpose of the foundation, which is usually to develop and promote the specific tech stack. That then can be later used for other commercial purposes to build on top. A comparison I often give is a little bit like an operating system. Think of Linux that is being released, so others can use this operating system to create commercial ventures. Now, because the project is non-profit itself, the code it releases is released open source. So there were multiple issues, dependencies. As you as a software engineer, you're aware of that if you're building a software, you don't want to reinvent the wheel, so you try to use somebody else's results of somebody else's work. And if they are released under, like a very like defensive open source license, this is going to affect your main body. So that was one area. Second, because our project also issued its own token coin, this was a time where regulators were trying to wrap their hands around like what these cryptocurrencies really are under law, what it really is. Is it, is it a legal tender? Is it like similar to cash or fiat money? Is it a security? Is it maybe something else? So this was very interesting, and it requires you a lot of understanding. And naturally, there were also situations where we had a team working from different countries, people of different nationalities. So you have this usual legal work. And finally, I mentioned that in Switzerland specifically, where in 2017, 2018, a lot of projects were being headquartered, whereas usually their actual operations, because of the labor cost, were ongoing in other jurisdictions. So it's a very common concept that you had a Swiss foundation established in Switzerland that was managing all the assets, sometimes really hundreds of millions of dollars. Had a core team of, probably like an accountant, legal counsel, maybe a board member, and a couple of operational people. But the actual development, marketing, sales were done elsewhere. And these Swiss foundations, as a concept, they were, before this emergence of blockchain technology, were primarily used for charity purposes. Like, the legal entity of a foundation was primarily used, to finance charity foundation, into charity activity. And suddenly in 2017, 2018, you have an outburst of foundations that manage these tokens that the people don't really know what they are. They have assets under management worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So local authorities in Switzerland, and there is one specific authority on the federal level that supervises those foundations, had to understand what's happening, and it took them several years. So for us, the corporate governance aspect of it, how to run a foundation that suddenly has all these assets, has its own intellectual property, has its own token. There are people that invested in the project, buying the tokens. They might have some expectations. Are they equal to shareholders that are investing in shares? Like all this was, very challenging, and it required a lot of, understanding of different aspects of law.
And now you set up a new business, and then can we talk about that a little bit? So what does do?
Yeah, sure.
How did you come up with this idea? Is there like real business needs?
So I joined the blockchain space working as a lawyer, which I just explained, and I did that for several years. I changed companies. I joined another blockchain project, also based in Zug, a competitor, one can call, to the previous one. And as an in-house counsel, you very quickly get dragged to business discussions. You're asked for an advice, not only on legal aspects, but also operational aspects of how the project works. So I started shifting slowly from doing legal work into more operational. We, from a team of 4 or 5, when I joined, we ended up having a team of 40 people. And I was, together with my colleague, we were together managing the whole company. We were hiring, we were structuring processes, everything which is required in a global project, having people in different countries and also in different areas. We had a budget of 25 million Swiss francs a year, so it wasn't negligible. So I was more and more going toward operations and business. Eventually, even I ended up being a managing director of the organization and later on a board member. But time was passing by, and I saw that there were many challenges to the adoption of blockchain technology as such. And of course, today, cryptocurrencies are getting more and more popular because there's a shift in the US administration. There are finally regulations being adopted in different countries, also in the European Union, UK, the US, which gives more clarity. But that wasn't the case before. And I always looked at blockchain technology as a phenomena that has much larger can serve much larger amount of use cases that only speculation, where people just trade and then make some gains or also losses, as well as payments. I was looking at it more of a data processing system, very peculiar, having its disadvantages, advantages, but having also potential of being the backbone of the internet of the future. And one of the things that in my opinion, were blocking the adoption of this technology was a very peculiar thing. Is that when in blockchain technology and with crypto assets, there is no one centralized intermediary that facilitates the payments. Unlike with traditional legacy payment systems where we have banks or payment service providers, PayPal, or credit card companies, with crypto assets, we are able to make transactions directly peer-to-peer without intermediary of anybody else. It has its advantages, but one of the disadvantages is that if something goes wrong, for example, if our assets are stolen or we lose access to our crypto assets, I don't know, for example, we just lose a private key or seed phrase to our wallet, there's nobody we can call and request, hey, could you please issue me a new one? As we would do normally with e-banking. We would call a bank and say, I forgot my password, can you issue me a new one? This is not possible with this type of distributed systems. Another thing is that blockchain technology not only provides for a possibility of a peer-to-peer transfer, but depending on the blockchain layer, it also allows for almost immediate transactions. So I am today able to send some value to you in a matter of seconds, sometimes even milliseconds. What's more, there are no border constraints. So this transaction can be cross-border. So we suddenly have a system that allows for cross-border, nearly instant transactions without a centralized intermediary. And this attracted a lot of rogue actors. Naturally, with the adoption of blockchain technology and crypto assets being much more popular, more and more people has had some exposure to them. There appeared a group of criminals that started stealing them, and the events that lead to the theft of crypto assets can be of all sorts of kinds. It can be simple theft. Somebody just steals your private key or seed phrase because you have it noted on a sheet of paper that you keep in your drawer. It can be through a hack because somebody hacks your device where you keep your crypto assets. Somebody can hack into your cryptocurrency exchange account and therefore is able to transfer them out, the assets out. It can be through different sorts of fraud, and we can talk about that. There's multiple of them. And when this happens, and the assets are stolen, and they can be sent to any other wallet very quickly, and anywhere in the world, can be the provenance of the assets can be very quickly obfuscated using different techniques. There's very little that a victim can do. Because there is no central point that can freeze these assets. There's no centralized intermediary. There's no easy way to recover them. The only option is to regain the access to the address where criminals send the assets to. This can happen in physical manner, that the criminals are detained and then they hand out the assets, or as is usually the case, is were on centralized crypto exchanges, because the main motivation of criminals is when they steal crypto assets is not to keep them in the form of crypto assets. What they want to do is they want to off-ramp into traditional fiat currencies like pounds, US dollars, euros as soon as possible. And the only possibility to do that is on centralized points like crypto exchanges, brokers, OTC desks. The moment when the assets land on their desks, these entities can freeze them. And because of the developing regulatory frameworks, these entities are today licensed. They are different compliance requirements imposed on them. They need to do KYC. They're paying taxes. They are hiring hundreds, if not thousands, of people. They become they are slowly coming to the level of traditional financial players. So they also start to respect compliance. All this, I've been witnessing how with the adoption of crypto assets, also the sector of criminals stealing crypto assets has been growing. And I thought that unless we solve this, the adoption of technology is not going to happen. The wide adoption of the technology is not going to happen. And yes, as of today, we are still talking about crypto, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and there is 15,000, if not 20,000 other types of crypto assets out there. Some of them, speaking very honestly, I have no idea why they are worth, how much they're really worth. We have, Trump coin and all this stuff. But I still think of it as a little bit like a playground. It's like there's still interim phase where people are playing with the technology. The actual revolution is going to happen. And I'm pretty confident that it's going to happen. I don't know when, but we see already some pilots and proof of concept when we will have tokenization of traditional financial assets. So we'll no longer be trading crypto assets in form of Bitcoin, NFTs, or any other layer one native tokens, but we'll be sending blockchain-based financial instruments, derivatives, bonds, all sorts of instruments. And then the market is going to be much larger. We're not talking about $3-4 trillion market. We'll be talking about hundreds of trillion dollars market, and the transaction volume will be going to expand extremely big. But in order for this to happen, we need to solve this problem. What to do with when the assets, crypto assets, are being stolen? Again, very long explanation, but I wanted to provide a context. Having all that in mind, we decided to set up a company called Recoveris. What we do, we are a team of blockchain investigators, former law enforcement officers, and lawyers like myself with deep understanding of blockchain technology and crypto assets. What we do, we specialize in blockchain investigations on tracing of the stolen assets and also coordination of efforts aimed at recovering those stolen crypto assets. Something I didn't really touch upon is also the very nature of blockchain technology and blockchain-based crypto assets is that every single transaction with crypto assets, whether legal or illicit, is recorded on a publicly available ledger, a ledger that is immutable, cannot be really tampered with, which is a curse and a blessing. A curse because it also slowed down the adoption because of data protection issues. So many traditional players and the governments were afraid of adopting blockchain technology because of, well, if every single action is going to be recorded in the blockchain, how are we going to comply with data protection regulations? But the blessing is that it makes the whole industry much more transparent. So the irony is following: if you were a criminal and you were stealing crypto assets, you are leaving a immutable trail of evidence because every single transaction that you do is auditable, can be monitored live, and later on can provide a very good evidence that can support a legal claim in court. So what we do is we use these very characteristics of blockchain technology. We use sophisticated blockchain analytic tools. Some of them are commercial, some that are more open source. We have people that have been doing this type of investigations for years. I mean, we have accumulated experience of tens of, I'm not going to say hundreds, but tens of thousands of different blockchain investigations, big cases, smaller cases in different countries. So we try to trace the stolen assets up until the centralized points like crypto exchanges, quickly notify them about the fact that the assets that they just received have been stolen, request them to freeze. And there is a kind of a race between the criminals that want to off-ramp very quickly and companies like ours, as well as law
How
enforcement.
quick is that? Like, are we talking about days, minutes, or
It
hours?
depends. So there was a research released recently by one of the blockchain analytic companies that they've analyzed a really big amount of different cryptocurrency theft cases. And the fastest one was that it took 2 minutes the criminals to effectively launder the money and cash out. We obviously in this type of cases, time is of the essence because of this race that we and law enforcement, we want to trace the assets, catch the criminals, catch the assets at the moment when they are being sent to crypto exchange. And criminals also know that. So what they will do, they will try to obfuscate the tracing path. They will use different techniques. They will use mixers, or they will switch assets between different chains. They will use decentralized services. There are all sorts of legal techniques that they adopt to make our work and law enforcement's work much harder. We have so our advice usually to the clients is that time is of the essence. The sooner you react, the sooner you inform law enforcement and companies like ours, the higher the chances. Nevertheless, in our track record, we do have cases that were a couple months and even a couple years old, in which we were able to still freeze and recover some of the assets. So it's still possible, but obviously the chances are decreasing significantly.
In terms of your business model, would customers engage with you before something like this happens, or usually they are a bit more reactive? Hey, my assets are stolen, and then can you help? That kind of thing. Because when they do it, it might be too late anyway. So I think it makes more sense to me if they somehow have some kind of protection if something like that happens in the future. It's a bit more like insurance, like selling insurance. How does your company operate? Is it more reactive?
That's a very good question that you've asked. So we are primarily focusing on after care.
Yeah.
So after the event happens, I always say that in an ideal world, services of a company like ours wouldn't be really necessary, because victims as citizens should have all the right to expect from the law enforcement to be able to report their case and then expect a timely, quick reaction. So the law enforcement should have all the possible resources and knowledge and experience, and shouldn't be overwhelmed with with similar cases of work, which is not the case. Law enforcement is still, of course, there are some exceptions, but on a global scale, is very much overwhelmed, doesn't have the resources and understanding and knowledge and experience how to deal with such cases, which makes it very attractive for criminals to steal the assets. To your question, there are some solutions that using the fact that blockchain is a public ledger, so all the transactions are being recorded and are publicly available. There are tools being developed that can, by applying AI, machine learning, and data analysis, they can predict certain behaviors or with very high probability that certain activities may lead to a potential hack. So earlier this year, there was one of the largest hacks in the crypto history, where a crypto exchange Bybit was hacked, and more than $1 billion US dollars of crypto assets were stolen. And there are companies that, or we are aware of them, that claim to that they were able to predict some type of activity happening on the blockchain. So kind of perpetrators preparing the actual theft by applying, they applied their algorithm to predict this. And several minutes before. So if they were employed by the exchange that suffered from the attack, they might have prevented this. There are these types of solutions, whereas they are more designed for institutional clients, for crypto exchange themselves, not necessarily for individual victims. Because in most of those situations that we deal with, it's usually the human element that fails. I think probably 50 or 60% of our clients are individuals that fall victims on different frauds or investment scams. So people get approached by some, we call them like cold contacts through different social media, be it Facebook, LinkedIn. Sometimes they receive messages on WhatsApp or Telegram. They get into the conversation. And to give you an example, one of the age group and like that is specifically being affected are middle-aged men and in Western countries that get into this online romantic relationship with good-looking ladies from Southeast Asia. When they interact for some time, and eventually, once there is kind of a trust established, that person that they talk to introduces an investment scheme. It's like, look, I recently invested in this, on this platform, and I made 10% within a day. Or, my uncle has this investment platform. Would you like to try it? And, you can make really 100% in a month. And people get lured into that. They initially invest a very small amount, and it actually brings the promised return. So they invest, I don't know, $1,000 US, and then, within a day, they get 100. They make small yield. They're able to withdraw it. So there is nothing really suspicious. So they start to invest more and more and more. And eventually, they get scammed. So we've seen examples where people invested really their all life savings, even taking mortgages. And there's a moment when it becomes apparent that the assets were stolen. And at that stage, some of the victims still do not connect the person that they used to talk to about it with the actual scam, which is very telling. I think for us as humans, psychologically, it's very hard to admit that we've been lied to, that we trusted so much that we are kind of in the denial mode.
Yeah.
So we deal with this type of clients. For them, such a solution that I explained wouldn't be really that helpful, because they would need to know that they are being lured in the fraud in the first place, which if they were aware of, the whole thing will be solved. So a human element is there. And also, coming back to my statements about adoption of blockchain technology, another risk that I see is, or like a hurdle, is that, in blockchain, you are a little bit your own bank. Because if you are the possession of the means of moving the assets, it's not the intermediary like a bank, credit card company. Yes, it gives you a lot of freedom. So it's this utopian vision that you're really controlling your own assets. But this comes with all the associated risks, meaning that if you lose the crypto, the private keys, there's nobody to help you, or you can be also exposed to cyber attacks. And the question is, where is it safer to keep your assets? Is everybody really such a good cybersecurity expert that can adopt all the cybersecurity measures to be sure that their device, their computer, is not going to compromise, or whether it makes sense to outsource it to a crypto exchange or a broker or a custody provider who has been investing millions into this type of infrastructure and is insured, and they're really specialists in that. So this is another area where probably the adoption will go into this way that the custody and the management of crypto assets will be still done by these intermediaries, by a new class of intermediaries. There will be no banks, but there will be these custody providers or crypto exchanges.
So what's your biggest challenge in your new company? Is it more technological challenge, or is it more like, scaling challenge, or finding customers, or brand awareness? Is it a bit of everything?
I'll start from the end. So ironically, and it's good for us, but it's bad for the people. We get a lot of demand for our services. One is because of the adoption of crypto assets. So naturally, the more people have exposure to crypto assets, possess crypto assets, the more people will lose them statistically, or the more criminals will appear and try to steal them. Just to give you an example, last year in 2024, in England and Wales, close to 50% of all the crimes, including murders, thefts, burglaries, were online frauds, out of which a significant portion involved crypto assets. There is a global pandemic that involves cryptocurrency thefts and hacks and frauds. So we are not complaining on the insufficient demand. Of course, it's always better to have more clients, but this is not our, let's say, crucial problem. The problem we have is how to scale up our operations. To a very large extent, the work we've been doing is still similar to consulting. Yes, we do use sophisticated blockchain analytic tools to trace the assets. We use also other OSINT, open source intelligence tools. We draft our reports that are then submitted to courts, but it's still the human factor. So the experts that we have in our team play still a very big, crucial role. They do the investigation. So they have tools, but they still need to apply their knowledge and experience to solve the case. And as with every consulting business, or also with every software development business, it's scalable only linearly. So you can only hire more consultants, or maybe you can start charging higher fees. And given the demand and the time where we are with the adoption of crypto assets, I don't think that will be a good solution. So what we've started to do is we look at the actual the whole workflow for a random case, from the moment when we collect the information from the actual victim until we start the investigation. At early stages of in the investigation, we are also trying to blacklist the stolen assets in different databases. So the databases are being used or shared with the crypto exchanges. So the moment when they receive these assets, they will either not process them further or they will freeze them. Then the actual investigation starts. And finally, we draft a report in an expert, it's a meticulously drafted forensic report that can serve as an evidence in courts and or with the law enforcement agencies. All this can take time. And as I said, time is of the essence. So we started experimenting with different prototypes, how we can automate different stages of the whole workflow. Just to give you an example, and I think that the emergence of large language models and it was also very timely because I think for a medium complexity investigation, I'm going to generalize a lot, but it can take, let's say, 8 hours for a skilled investigator to investigate it, to finalize the investigation. And then in order to draft a proper report that has a really good quality, it can take up to 2 or 3 days. Whereas when you think about it, it's clearly a large language model task. So we started experimenting. We taught the model how reports should be drafted with the format that we normally use. So we supplied the model with hundreds of different reports that we've already drafted. Of course, we added some additional prompts. And then the moment when the investigator is undertaking the investigation, he's already prompting the model. Once the investigation is finished, in a matter of seconds, he receives a, let's say 80-90% ready draft report, which he only needs to proofread. It's a very simple automation. It's not a rocket science. So we've been trying to experiment with making the work of our investigators much more efficient. All that led us to realization that we should probably shift from a purely consulting business into more of a tech company. Because there are many larger players on the market that build blockchain analytic tools. And I think they are slowly starting to get going this direction. So it was not only a good opportunity for us to automate different processes, it was also a necessity, because if we don't do it, probably sooner or later our business model will become obsolete. So we are now, in addition to running our consulting business, we are building a software as a service platform that is going to enhance the whole workflow for investigations. We are calling it for now a blockchain investigation management system that is going to automate to the most possible extent different stages, from the data collection, investigation, monitoring, blacklisting, and also dissipation of all the information to different stakeholders. Now, there's one important challenge is the data protection. The information we deal with are highly sensitive information. These are information that victims are sharing with us with a huge level of trust that we are not going to share with anybody else, or maybe only with law enforcement with their approval. So this has to be very carefully. We need to deal with this information very carefully. So we cannot use open source, open models, not knowing who and how processes the data. This is one challenge. And another challenge is for those investigations that we summarize in the report, we need to avoid a little bit like a black box paradigm where we just provide some input, something happens, we don't know how, and then we get an output. Yeah. We have to be able to explain to the court or to law enforcement agents how we actually achieved the result. And then we need to prove that it was done in accordance with the standards and all the applicable rules. So we are kind of balancing with this too. And for in order to build this platform, we just to kickstart the efforts. We just closed a financing round. We were very picky about our investors. We raised 1 million pre-seed seed round. We want to build an MVP. And then probably mid next year, we are going to start a serious round to really build a full-fledged platform.
What would your 10-year-old self be proud of you today, in terms of your achievement?
I think I would have been, I'm proud, and my 10-year-old myself would be proud of how I did the career shift. So it was definitely stepping out of the comfort zone. And if I could give myself an advice, of course, I also believe that, we are as humans, we are sum of all our experiences, whether good or bad. And where I am is thanks to all the different experiences and things that I was exposed to. So it's hard to say if I would change anything in my life, but I would definitely tell myself not to bother so much what people think, or even more, may think of me. I had a very big sense of insecurity when I was younger. I was really thinking, just bothering too much of what other people may think of me. And this moment of realization when I was older is people really don't care. And it's all in our heads that we are creating all these scenarios, and it's limiting us. I think that would have saved me a lot of anxiety and insecurity.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. We always think people are constantly judging us.
Yeah, which is not the case. People don't care.
And once you realize that, I think it can change your perspective and become a different person. Is there any business advice that you'd like to share with others?
So I think that everybody's life story and situation is different, and it would be inappropriate and not right to give advice. And I don't feel I'm a good person to do that. But if I were to give a general sentiment, what worked in my case is challenging yourself and getting out of your comfort zone. So I'm a natural introvert. And through different experiences, I was just challenging myself and like pushing myself to go out of my comfort zone and talk to people, to participate at different events. And why is that important? First, because it gives you more confidence than when you do public appearances, or when you talk to business partners, or when you even undergo interviews with we're doing interviews with your potential employees. You just feel more confident as a person. But more importantly, this allows you to meet a lot of people. Meeting and chatting a lot of people creates you it has a networking effect. And this has paid off so many times in so many unusual occasions in my life. Just to give an example, in our current startup, a majority of the people that we hired are coming in some sort of way from our broader network of contacts, or they were referred to us. So if I were right now, we are scaling up our tech team. Not a single time we just put a job advertisement that we are looking for a specific position. Either I knew some people that I used to work with, or I know a couple people that work for software houses that I can always reach out and say, look, I need a backend developer with this type of tech stack. Sure, there's somebody. Oh, great. Or people. So having a big network of contacts, and these they don't need to be your friends, but just people you know, and chatting about things is really useful. So even for a lot of people, and that was my story, it was not really natural to talk to strangers or to go to meetups, or like to really talk to people when you study or you play football with, or do any sort of activities. Just by chatting, you learn so many things that you can help each other. There's a huge power in this. And I think it's really applicable, not to say to business, but to any part of our daily life and activity.
And what would be the most important differentiators for successful entrepreneurs today?
That's a very tough question. I think, like specifically in the context of today, a big differentiator will be how quickly they adopt AI.
Okay.
For us, as a newly founded company and startup, and given the fact that to some extent we are implementing AI-driven solutions already in our platform that we're building, we don't have a legacy costs. It's not like we've been operating systems that have been working for years, and there is this legacy cost of changing them. People are accustomed to different processes, so the change means a lot of cost. Meaning that we have freedom of thinking about us and different aspects of running a company as AI first.
Yeah.
What does it mean? If we were today to provide customer support in any shape or form to our clients, victims, or that report clients cases to us, we wouldn't even consider hiring 2 or 3 people that are there to answer calls or reply to tickets. We are already working on something that's going to be fully automated, like a chatbot that can also have a real life kind of conversation with the victim, and it's connected to the internet. So just to give you an example, many of our victims are not necessarily tech or crypto savvy. So when they report or they refer to us and they report a crime, it's very important to collect information that are valid. So you don't have this back and forth. What often happens, like if a victim reports a case, the local police department, and the police officer doesn't understand crypto, and he needs to report the wallet address, which is a string of letters and numbers. They put it on paper. And it's so easy to make a typo. Yeah. Then this report is being taken to like a police expert that will take a look at this after a month because it's so busy. He will say, oh, there's nothing I can do. There's a typo. So then you need to come back to the victim and say, can you please provide this again? Yeah. Or if you ask a victim, an elderly person who just lost all their life savings, like, can you tell me your wallet address? And they're like, what is a wallet address? And I'm like, okay, well, let me explain you. And then they say, look, I don't know what you're talking about. So our question will be, can you please send me a screenshot of your phone or a photo? And then we'll manually extract the data. So we're trying to build a system that will answer all those questions, will provide guidance, and the same will scrap necessary data. It saves a lot of back and forth. We know that data are just immediately valid. This can be done with a chatbot. I'm not even saying an AI agent because that would be an overstatement. Otherwise, you would need to hire people with all the costs associated with that, with all the potential liabilities, and there is this inefficiency of back and forth. So I believe that in our example, it's working really well. But with what's happening today, whatever business you're running, and especially if running business which is somehow touching on the internet or tech, think about how are you going to how you can implement different AI based solutions.
That's great. Marcin, thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.